I understand what you're saying, but I'ma help them understand what you're saying.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey, you! Yeah, you! Come here for a minute. I want to talk to you. Mama says you're brain dead, bang your head against the wall. Can't find peace of mind, brain needs an overhaul. Bonehead, brain dead, we're all the same. You can't think straight when your heart is in pain. Turn around, hit the ground, time to lay your burden down.
The views expressed on this broadcast of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show are those of the co-host and guest and do not necessarily reflect those of our affiliates. The topics and opinions on today's show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice. Take 12 Radio is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship. And now, here's your host,
The man, the myth, the legend.
the Monty Man.
I'm telling you the truth, no, I ain't gonna lie to you. Good guys, bad boys, we're all the same. Saved by grace is the name of the game. Turn around, hit the ground. Time to lay your burden down. Welcome to the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show. Denver is here.
I have 2 new cowbells.
You have 2 new cowbells?
I do, on my dash.
Dash of your motorcycle?
Nah, on the dash of the van.
So I'm trying something with the camera. We only have one camera, and so we can't film everybody. I got to figure out how to do that.
I've got 2 more cameras.
Yeah, but I don't think I can make them work on this computer with more than just one. So these are just webcams. So I don't know.
Switchbox.
Does that mean we're kind of live?
Kind of.
Kind of live?
Yeah, you're not dead.
All you need is a switchbox.
So I can just switch back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay. I'll expect that next week.
Then you're going to need an engineer
Right.
to do the switch.
I know, right? Dave Fleming's in the house. Dave Fleming. Let's see. Here, Dave. Say hi.
Hi, Dave.
And then Marv. Marv is here.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Hey, Marv.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, good deal. All right. So we'll come back to here. And,
I don't get no airtime.
Yeah, you do. Look at that.
I don't get no airtime.
Now they're going to be able to find you.
Denver.
No.
Facial
There's videos
recognition.
out. There's videos out there. Don't worry.
Denver. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if
Yeah,
I want to even
yeah.
know.
And all you need is 25 cents.
What city is that?
Well, it's about any major metropolitan city.
Just any old downtown.
Yikes.
Well, greetings, everyone. This week, the topic is the Take 12 Recovery Radio Ask It Basket. So we put a little cry for help out there on the internet, and I actually got several, actually more than this. Some of them were just so bizarre that I'm not even going to repeat. But got quite a few, so we'll try to get through these today. If we don't get through all of them, then we'll do them next week as well. But listen, before we do anything else, I really want to say congratulations to our friend Marco, and I think Cecil has something for Marco. Right, Cecil? Hello?
Well, thank you, Monty Man. I consider it an honor.
I know.
Here we go. Hi, everybody. It's Cecil. We want to celebrate a very special sobriety birthday to our friend, Mr. Marco Ronzi from Arizona. Here
That's
we
right.
go. You know it doesn't make much sense. There ought to be a law against. That's right. Anyone who takes offense at day in your celebration, because we all know in our minds Marco,
Marco.
that there ought to be a time, Marco, that
Marco.
we can set aside, Marco, to show just how much we love you. And I'm sure you would agree. What couldn't fit more perfectly than to have a world party on the day that you celebrate your sobriety?
Thank you, Cecil.
You're very welcome, Monty Man. Now get on with
Congratulations,
the
Marco.
show.
What about all the other September?
And everybody else
celebrations?
that is celebrating birthdays in September. Actually, today, and Marco, I just want to say, Marco's was yesterday.
How long?
19 years.
Oh my goodness.
19 years. Happy birthday, Marco.
Yeah, excellent.
Congratulations. And the Monty Man celebrates 22 years today.
Yeah, we read that.
Today.
Oh,
Well, congratulations.
congratulations.
Yeah, yeah.
22
But
years.
we won't, Cecil didn't want to sing a song to me. Cecil was just, well. But to Marco, yes. And so congratulations, Marco. Marco's been with us on several trips
Oh yeah.
to to Arizona and such. To
He seems
See,
to pop in.
what's that?
Cecil don't realize you regulate his wages.
I know.
Yeah, he needs to wake up a little bit.
Oh my goodness sake.
Right
Uh-oh.
there. It's time for Monty Man's Weekly Wine.
Yes, indeedy. Oh boy.
Is that
So
red or white?
yeah, both maybe. Walmart prison. So the wife and I were in Lebanon yesterday. We never go to the Walmart in Lebanon because we have a Walmart here in Albany. And this isn't the case with Albany's. I don't know if it is wherever you are, listeners, but we went into the Walmart and most of the cash registers are gone and they have self-checkout, right? Which, by the way, takes your picture, videotapes you while you're checking out, which is kind of creepy. But anyway, so we're in there, and I realized that what I need to get is on the far side of the store. So Marcia went to go see if there was one of those little scooters for me. So she tried to leave, and there's these security arms. When you go in, they open up automatically, and when you leave, they open up automatically. But you can't leave. You have to go through the express checkouts. You have to go by them. You can't just leave the exit because when she tried to, an alarm went off. The little arm started to open up to leave, and an alarm went off. And a lady told her, "You have to go through the registers. You can't just walk out."
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was exciting. So if you're going shopping at the Walmart in Lebanon and you don't find what you want, you still have to go through the checkout to leave. You just can't walk out. And I guess it's a anti-theft thing.
Sounds like a challenge to me.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah, right. All you addicts and alcoholics out there,
So-
take the
Mob,
challenge.
flash mob.
You can't, if you're like handicapped, you gotta like crawl into the store first before you can get on a scooter.
Walmart prison, baby.
I saw him
Well,
installing that
there's
unit.
always
Did
it's
you?
because it's always the few that mess it up for the rest of us.
Right.
It's always homeless. We watched a kid go into Walmart in Corvallis, and the entrance door is right next to the produce section.
Yeah.
So he grabbed a bag of apples and he grabbed some other fruit, and as soon as somebody walked in the door, he's walked right out.
Did they catch you?
Sure.
No,
I can guarantee you that.
nobody
Walmart.
even like even moved. I don't think they even saw him.
I can guarantee you, though, and this has been the case since the dawn of retail, that employee theft ranks way higher than customer theft. It does. Yes. Speaking as one who was a manager at SS Kresge, a.k.a. Kmart, for a long time.
Monty.
So,
Is that a confession?
no. Maybe.
Maybe.
Anyway, okay, so that was my wine, but we gotta have to have a win too, and I've got one for you. Definitely a win. I want to give a shout out to the Bigfoot Grill in Lebanon, Oregon. Oh my goodness, Marv, have you eaten there?
No,
Because you're in
I
Lebanon. It's on 525 Main Street. Steve and Nancy own this place, and the atmosphere is great. It's all Bigfoot stuff, right? It's a small cafe, but the food is phenomenal. I mean, just the place is spotless. The kitchen, we said, I wanted to see the kitchen because you know me, I like to do restaurant things.
You like the wine?
Yes, I do. And the kitchen was spotless. The service was impeccable. And the burger I had was absolutely out of this world. I had the Kraken. It was called the Kraken. And I asked for bacon on it, and they only charged me $1. Most places charge you like $3, $4 to put bacon on your burger, but they only charged me an extra $1. The tater tots were amazing. I never finished tater tots because they're kind of boring. Not these. This place was incredible. And then I was talking to, I think it was probably Nancy, and we started talking about the radio show, and I told her, I said, I'm going to give you guys a shout out on the show. And then the discussion led to recovery. And so let's just put it this way. We connected, if you know what I'm saying. And so I just want to give a shout out to Bigfoot Grill, 525 Main Street, Lebanon, Oregon. If you haven't eaten there, please stop by. Just a great experience. Really, really cool. There you go.
I was just thinking about that this morning. I'm like, I heard a commercial. I'm like, I got to go check that place out.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about
Yeah.
them. So I was like,
Very, very good.
Bigfoot-
Okay.
Bigfoot in it.
We'll be right back after this important message. This is going to tell you where we're going to be here this weekend. Dave and Denver and myself and Marvin Spirit, I know he will be, come out and talk to the Take 12 radio family. So check this out, and we'll be right back with the Take 12 Recovery Radio Ask It Basket. Lots of interesting questions, and I'm sure some interesting answers. Don't go away. Hey everybody, it's the Monty Man from Take 12 Recovery Radio, inviting you to help us celebrate National Recovery Month by attending Hands Across the Bridge, Building Bridges. When? September 6th from 2 to 7 p.m. at Riverfront Park Amphitheater in Salem, Oregon. The main event kicks off at 5 p.m. and is free to everyone. A DJ, live music, speakers, food, games, fellowship, and it's family friendly. So bring the kiddos. Hands Across the Bridge is an annual event held to celebrate recovery from addiction and mental health challenges, and to remember those we have lost. It's a time when we gather across the Center Street Bridge to honor our fallen loved ones, and to show that recovery is possible, especially when we do it together. Listen, if you have any questions about the event, or if you're interested in becoming a vendor or a sponsor, please call Loretta at 503-393-4273. That's Hands Across the Bridge, Building Bridges, September 6th from 2 to 7 p.m. at Riverfront Park Amphitheater, Salem, Oregon. Don't forget to stop by the Take 12 Recovery Radio booth and say hi to the Monty Man. The 2019 Hands Across the Bridge is brought to you by the Marion Polk Peer Coalition. All right, and in addition to that, also celebrating National Recovery Month, once again, Take 12 Recovery Radio and our team will be at the 18th Annual Recovery Forum of the Southwest Washington Recovery Coalition. That'll be the very next day, Saturday, September 7th, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. at Clark College Geyser Student Center in Vancouver, Washington. This is a celebration of recovery. The theme, Together We Are Stronger. And the recovery speakers will be Keith W., Adam C., and Norm J. They're going to be giving away Community Appreciation Awards. There's going to be lots of recovery resource tables, door prizes, drawings, and a free lunch beginning at 12 p.m. But make sure you're there on time, because that's only while food supplies last. This is hosted by the Southwest Washington Recovery Coalition. So, oops. See, people are watching on YouTube are wondering how I can say all that stuff without moving my lips.
I doubt it.
yeah,
I doubt it.
I don't think so.
Hey, listen, on YouTube, you're looking
They're
at this.
probably out taking their dog.
If you want
for a
one of
walk.
these fancy Nancy Monty Man mugs, Take 12 Recovery Radio mugs, what you got to do is go to take12radio.com, go down to the bottom of the page and click on I think it says Get Our Coffee Mugs. And there's a really awesome deal going on there right now. Also, for those of you who don't have the finances to purchase Walking Through the Big Book and Walking Through the 12 Steps of 12 Traditions, you can get Walking Through the Big Book. Actually, I'll throw in 12 Steps of 12 Traditions too. But you can go to take12radio.com and click on at the bottom of the page, Big Book Study. And those are all there for you. Now you can download them. You can make copies of them. You have our permission to burn copies on DVDs and CDs and that kind of thing. So you have them for yourself. Otherwise, go to the Get Our Coffee Mugs link, and there's a special there on the 12 and 12 in the Big Book Study. Okay. The Take 12 Recovery Radio Ask It Basket. My co-hosts all have a copy of this, and I'll just read the first one here. It says, or asks, shouldn't churches today have recovery pastors, not CR leaders, meaning Celebrate Recovery leaders? That's just a monopoly on recovery, like Vacation Bible School brought in a package. But actual pastors focused on recovery. We have music ministers, youth pastors, young adult pastors, etc., on staff at the churches. But the biggest need I see and experience is the amount of people dying across our country from overdoses. Where's our focused ministry? And this comes from Ray M. Interesting question, good question. First of all, yeah, addiction is the number one health crisis in our nation. Recovery from it gets the least amount of attention due to stigma. But why not recovery pastors? I have my take on that. Dave, you want to chime in?
Well, I just want to, shout out to my Minnesota peeps, because we actually have a few recovery churches in Minnesota. There's actually a recovery high school where people in recovery go to high school. Yep.
Yeah.
So there are.
They do exist.
They are out there. I'm not sure if there are any in Oregon.
Yeah, there is one in Vancouver.
Start one.
There is in Vancouver called the Exchange Church, and we've seen their booth, Denver, at the Southwest Washington Recovery Coalition event. It's a whole church surrounded around recovery, just like what you were saying.
Right.
So if there's two, there's probably a whole lot more. Anybody want to chime in on this question? Anybody got any opinions?
If your congregation is for it, why not?
Sure.
I mean, seriously, if you can afford it and everybody's on board, it's a wonderful idea.
So here's the thing. Why do we have CR leaders, not recovery pastors? Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of pastors out there that are music ministers, that are vocational pastors, at Vacation Bible School and all that stuff.
And in recovery.
Yes.
But however, I was going to say there's a whole lot more people in recovery that aren't licensed pastors, that are well qualified to be a facilitator and lead a recovery forum, such as Celebrate Recovery. And I think that's probably why we see more people. We don't want to not have those programs just because we can't hire a recovery pastor. Now, if somebody is licensed with your particular denomination and is a pastor, and there's somebody that actually has experienced freedom from addictive use disorder and they're in recovery, heck yeah. Bring them on. If you, like Denver said, if you can do that. But I think we have to remember that it's probably going to be a whole lot easier to hire a youth pastor, a music minister, and stuff like that than it is going to be somebody that's in recovery that's going to be a pastor, because I think they're few and far between. There are people, I'm sure, that would jump at the chance of getting licensed, maybe even ordained, legitimately, not through mail order from the World Council of Churches, but legitimately through a denomination that are in recovery. I know there's several people that I know that have done that. And so, heck yeah, why not? But let's not discount CR leaders. They're very, very important. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Question number 2. How come when other people talk about their higher power in an AA meeting as being this, that, or the other thing, everyone is supportive. But when I mention that my higher power is Jesus, it's met with opposition and rebuttal. Well, we can do a whole show on that, perhaps. Hey, Marv, you want to... No, I'm not going to let you go yet. You already went. You want to comment on that?
Well, yeah, I will. And what I'm going to do might be out of line. I'm going to intertwine this with the first question.
Good.
I have seen and experienced people who were originally, if that's the way you want to put it, in recovery,
Right.
who got involved in the churches, started reaching out to minister, and they got so wrapped up in the religious jargon of their church that to somebody in recovery who would take offense at the name Jesus,
Right.
wouldn't pay attention to him.
So their message would be lost.
Their message is lost as far as the way I understand
Sure.
how it is for people who come into the program.
Right.
The religion thing and the recovery thing creates a problem. Now, I personally have several times mentioned in meetings that my higher power is Christ.
Was it ever met with opposition or rebuttal?
It never has been, but then I try to use some discernment on and how I present that,
Yeah.
because I realize the sensitivity that goes on
You bet.
in those rooms. So
So why do you think, because it's interesting, they said people mentioning their higher power is this, that, or the other thing. I've noticed this. If somebody mentions that their higher power is grandfather, which would reflect maybe Native American, or Allah, or Buddha, or even an inanimate object, which is perfectly acceptable in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, right?
yeah,
I've never heard any opposition to that, but I have when somebody mentions Christ.
yeah.
And I think I know why, but in addition to what you said, and I'm a Christian, but I got to tell you, sometimes we can get a little wackadoodle. Whereas some of these other things, people aren't quite as radical sometimes, but I think it's because these other things don't pose a threat, whereas Christ does,
Yeah.
because Christ is the God who is God. And so
Yeah.
there is an opposition naturally, and it's a spiritual battle.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. But that's just my take on it. Dave, what do you want to say?
There's a lot of wisdom in what Marv says,
You bet.
and I like to, come alongside that, because I think I've never, I've never met any opposition with it. Of course, I'm careful on, how I use
So you're
it.
using wisdom too.
Right,
Yeah.
and I can see it if somebody started like quoting scripture, then there might be a problem there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I would never do anything like that. So yeah, I think it's just discernment. I've never run into any opposition.
Denver, how about you?
I'm from a small town in Sweet Home, and I
Right.
never ran into any opposition about it. I'm not going to take the pulpit when I get up and talk about
Right.
recovery, but I'm not ashamed of my walk with Christ or recovery together.
You bet.
So
the big book says we never apologize for God, but that doesn't mean we don't use wisdom. Because remember, those of us who've been around a while, we don't want to lose our message. We want to be able to be effective. And sometimes it may not be wise to just blurt out specifically who your higher power is. You got to kind of know your audience, I think, and be sensitive.
long before I started this walk with Christ, I would have been offended to sit in meetings and hear about God. I really would have.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that. So the wisdom part really is perfect.
Dave?
The other thing that I just wanted to throw in here is because of my faith, right? There's a part of me that is entirely, aware when I'm in a meeting and my audience that I'm trying to lead by example. And part of that example is also sharing who my higher power is.
You bet.
And I'm careful of how I do that. I'm not going to preach. But if somebody is interested and they want to come and talk to me after the meeting, I've kind of laid that groundwork a little bit, because
Sure.
I've had a lot of people that they don't talk to you, but until some time has gone by, because they come in, because this is how I did it too. I watch everybody. I see what everybody's about. I see if they're, just spouting off stuff, that their words match their actions, and so I try to line myself up with, so my actions match my words.
Yeah.
And I've had people come up, after a period of time and have that conversation about higher power, or how did you do what you did, and how have you got so much sobriety, all that.
Sure. And for those of you who are of the Christian faith and you want to share the gospel and Jesus with others in recovery, because you believe, as we do, that He's the ultimate solution, listen, ask God to send you folks, and believe me, He'll do it.
Right.
You won't have to alienate anybody in a meeting. Before the meeting, after the meeting, breaks, things like that. Believe me, God will put people in your life. He really will. And so don't get too upset if somebody gets their feathers ruffled because you were specific about who God is. You don't have to defend God. You just don't have to. He's a big God. He can take care of himself. But we don't apologize either. All right, so here's the third question. What is your thoughts on having more than one sponsor as you work through the 12 steps? Anybody willing to chime in? What do you think, Marv?
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
You know why?
Why?
The bigger book says there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors.
Okay.
And the other part of the story is, again, the meetings it says stick with the winners,
Yeah.
and that means you have to use some discernment about who it is you're seeking guidance from.
True enough.
And there's an S at the end of that, right? Winners.
Yes.
That means
Yes.
plural.
Yeah.
Yeah. Denver, thoughts?
Multitude of people brings a lot to the table.
Okay.
The only, I just want to chime a little bit on the opposite side of that, is that there are some people that will pick and choose because maybe their discernment isn't as well defined yet,
Yeah.
and pick people that will kind of co-sign their BS.
Yeah, mom against dad kind of stuff.
Right.
And so I'm in that camp. I also agree that there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. But when we're talking about, I believe, when we're talking about sponsors, or a sponsor who is actually, because the question is, at working through the 12 steps, it would have been very confusing to me if I had 3 sponsors, all with a little different take on the 12 steps, all trying to take me through the 12 steps.
Yeah,
I needed one to show me how to
Right.
do that. Now, I had other people that I had no problem calling sponsors or spiritual advisors or mentors, but I had one that actually guided me through. Because otherwise, I know me. I say, well, Fred said this, and you say this, and so I'm not going to do that. And so I think having more than one can be confusing as far as working through the step process with open book, pen, and paper.
And I think most people are going to pick one person to do that because, I mean, I don't know, because I know I'd drive me crazy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do the steps with one person, and then I'm going to go back and do them again with another person,
Well,
and then maybe get contradictory information.
Sure.
but
Marv?
part of that has to do with several things, but one of them is how much do you take seriously what it says on our coin, to thine own self be true. The bottom line is when I personally consult with 2 or 3 people, the bottom line is I have to go be by myself and figure out what it is I need to do. And a lot of times new people in the program don't quite yet have that ability to do that. So, there's...
Yeah. I know accountability is a huge part of my spiritual walk. And the more people I'm accountable to, the more people have permission to yank on my chain anytime they want, even if they're mistaken, the better off I am. If you want to call them sponsors, spiritual advisors, mentors, whatever, semantics wise, but I think there's wisdom in multitude as well. But I think one, for me, I just needed one as far as the step process goes. But I there was certain things I discussed with other people that were mentors in the program. I didn't always discuss with my step sponsor. You know what I mean? Because he wasn't always available necessarily. And so I could call Marv up, or I could call Denver up or something like that and say, what do you think about this? And I don't know that they were actually sponsors, but.
So we don't want to thoroughly confuse anybody.
Right.
From my perspective, I think if you're new into the programs, you should have one sponsor to help you work through the steps. Because, I mean, I get what Marv's saying, because I was just kind of the same way. I was a little bit kind of beyond
the
beginning phase, and so I took counsel with 2 or 3 people, and then I kind of worked the step kind of on my own, and then I chose one or person or maybe 2 to go over the stuff if I had any questions.
Yeah.
So it depends on where you're at, but I would say for newcomers that picking, whatever fellowship you co-sign with the most.
Right.
That's just my 2 cents on it.
Well, it came from Chrissy L. Thank you, Chrissy. This one's from Miles. He says, I moved out to the West Coast from Akron. So just for listeners' sake that don't realize this, that's the birthplace of our 12-step mothership, Alcoholics Anonymous. I moved out to the West Coast from Akron. It seems that the program, and then he puts in parentheses, the big book, is adhered to much more strictly from where I'm from. It sure seems watered down here in Oregon. Your thoughts?
Dave?
I'm going to stay out of this one.
No, you're back in that area somewhere. I mean, Midwest back there.
Yeah, I come from a place of meetings are a lot different.
Yeah.
How so?
They have more structure, and I don't know. I feel like they're more of a, I don't even know how to explain it. It's more of a meeting, like what I'm used to back east or in the Midwest.
A formed meeting.
Yeah, we have
not ritual. That's a horrible
well,
word
yeah,
to
and
use,
most of the groups I've gone to, we usually have like breakout groups. So you have one group that meets, and then we break out and have like a big book study, or a step 1 group, or a pamphlet, an AA or NA pamphlet, or the meditation reading for the day. We'll have a group that'll break out into that. A few of the meetings I've been to here, they just seem disjointed. They half the group leaves in the middle of the group. They don't introduce themselves. I mean, it's just like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
People from outside come walk into the group, pour themselves a cup of coffee, and walk out. I mean, what is that?
I've also seen a lot of that.
I mean, I
They
don't
want coffee. That's what it's
I didn't want to say much because I haven't been to a whole lot of meetings here, but the ones that I've been to have been super informal. And I mean, I was in one meeting where the person that wasn't even sharing the meeting somebody came up and sat next to that person that's sharing the meeting and started calling people out in the group to talk. And they didn't want to talk, but they're like, she's like bullying them to talk. And I'm like, what kind of freaking AA group is this?
Yeah, well,
Oregon.
Is that? I mean,
I don't know. So here's the thing.
Is that similar to anybody else's experience?
Reel it in.
Let's go back to the East Coast. Let's go back to that area. And let me just tell you, if you were to go to the majority of AA meetings, and I've been to these, if you've been going to the meetings in the Akron area, and you go to meetings in the New York area, you're going to find two very different atmospheres. New York area is going to be much more kind of like what you were describing. Akron is going to be much more sticking to the program, the big book. That's kind of where it all came from. It kind of makes sense. It's much more conservative. I would say New York is much more liberal. The book Living Sober, for instance, the Yellow Book. Here's just a comparison in literature. If you read the big book and then you read Living Sober, you would swear it's two different programs. And so it can be that way with meetings too. I don't necessarily know that just because you're coming out to Oregon that they're quote unquote watered down, to quote him. It depends on where you, I guess it really doesn't depend where you're at. It can be that way anywhere. I do know that there has been an onslaught of not following the directions in the big book, kind of just doing your own thing. Bruce H. Used to say, when somebody says, I'm working my program, I believe them, right? Because there's the program, which is the book. Now, this guy's experience is that he's come out here and he sees a big difference, kind of like what you have. So, I don't know. I think you could go 5 blocks away and find a very organized meeting and go 5 blocks the other way and find one that's disjointed.
Let's put that to the test.
We'll see. We'll see.
I've had a lot of people that I work with, as a counselor, that say the same thing, and so we've kind of got to the point where it's, let's quit bitching about it and let's go start a meeting.
Don't you think, though, that part of the attitude about something like this has to do with the old adage that you used to hear? I remember when I was a kid, the old people talking, well, I had to walk 5 miles to school.
Right.
Uphill, barefoot.
And kind of the same thing.
Back in my day.
The old timers, and me included, maybe,
Yeah.
if I could be considered an old timer.
You're ancient.
Kind of.
Now you're old.
Yeah, I am. 20 years ago, it never used to be this way. This thing's watered down, and so it is a matter of perception.
The great thing about this is, though, God's still in charge. God's still in the meetings. God isn't surprised. Trust God, clean house, help others makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah. But no, I empathize with the guy. Let's see here. This is from Anonymous. Well, they weren't anonymous, but I didn't want to mention their name for obvious reasons, which you'll see here, because this is from our area.
Yeah, local.
I attend a meeting here in Albany, Oregon. We have a listener in Albany. That's amazing. You never profit in your own home, so that's kind of encouraging. I've gone to this meeting for several years, and it appears that the newcomer is treated with disdain. Whenever I bring it up, I am told I am too sensitive, and the newcomers here in Albany need to grow up. How do you feel about the newcomer? Dave's just rolling his eyes.
And a lot of times this is again like what Barb was saying, a perception issue,
right? Indeed. Well,
indeed. Do you want me to elaborate? Is that what?
Well, no. I'm just gonna.
No.
It's interesting.
Denver's shaking his head no.
I'm just shaking it.
It's just interesting how we say the newcomer is the most important person in any meeting. My first sponsor used to say, that's not true. I'm the most important person in any meeting because I got to work on me first. And there's all these semantics, and people throw around these platitudes, and people will argue and fight and everything over the craziest stuff that doesn't amount to a hill of beans. But the newcomer is a precious soul. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know what their history is, and they should be welcomed with open arms, regardless of race, creed, religion, or lack of religion, and their opinions about anything. And so I think we need to treat every newcomer as a precious being who is seeking recovery. And what that means individually for each other is, where can I be of maximum service to God and the people he puts in my life, i.e. the newcomer. Whether they're sitting across from me drinking a cup of coffee, spouting stuff off that's crazy, or whether they're digging in right from the get-go. I don't know. I think the newcomer is, are they the lifeblood of our program? I don't know. Is the old-timer the lifeblood of the program? I don't know. I think God's the lifeblood of the program. Marv, what do you think?
Oh, man, I wish you wouldn't have asked me. I'm probably... Well, you know, there is a couple of ways to look at this thing. And one of the deals, and throughout our AA literature, you know, there's a book at AA approved called Language of the Heart.
Yeah.
And one of the things that stood out in there for me was the example, one of the executors, you know, the big board committee was doing a speech, and he's talking about complete deflation of ego. And that stuck with me for a long time.
Wow.
And I see that applying to newcomers is, you know, when you come in there, what's your attitude when you're coming in there? I mean, are you just beat to death and ready to do something serious with your life? Or are you being in there because your wife wants you to, a judge wants you to, and you really don't want to quit drinking anyway?
Sure.
So that's part of it, the way I see it, is what's their attitude when they come in there? And another thing I'm going to really upset people is I do not think the newcomer is the most important person in the room.
There you go.
I just don't. And, of course, that's an opinion, and we know about that.
Right.
But the
Well,
thing
yours and
about-
mine are correct.
The thing
most
about
of the time.
the thing about it is,
And there it is.
You know, if we weren't there, the newcomer wouldn't have any place to go to.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So the newcomer is important, you know, but I can see a lot of gray area where...
Yeah.
in fact, right now, where I go to meetings, there's been a recent influx of newer people, and egos run high.
Amongst the new people or the old timers?
Yep.
Okay.
No, the new people.
The new
Yeah,
what-
it's usually the new people that are trying
Yeah.
to figure out what's going on. Their motives, like Mark said, their motives are, you know, they don't even know what they are.
Their
sometimes.
motives are mandated.
Or they're, you know, mandated.
Mandated
or
motives.
family
Yeah.
or whatever.
But
Well-
they are important.
Here's the deal. Here's the deal, though. Like I said, we don't know a person's history. A lot of times, the mask or the facade that a person walks in with is just that. And to label them that they don't care, they haven't reached their bottom yet, you know, you have nothing to say, and that kind of stuff. Listen, I was chewed up and spit out, you know, like crazy by the streets when I walked into the room, my 12-step rooms. And I didn't need some well-meaning bleeding deacon telling me to shut up and sit down, because what I heard was that you're worthless and you have nothing to offer. And I'd already experienced that. I mean, I've been told that right and left. I needed a firm hand, but not a harsh one.
Right. And I think that's where it's at for a lot of the new people, because
Yeah.
I've done it too, where you just talk, you know, you just talk to like they're, you know, just anybody else.
Sure.
And just, you know, if they've got an attitude or whatever, I usually just say, hey, you know, if you ever need any help, you got any questions, or you want to, you know, work
Yeah.
the steps or anything, you know, give me a call or let me know.
So we're going to stop with this last question because we got another page and a half, and we'll pick it up next week. Or not next week. Next week. Duh. Man,
Duh.
and we'll get this camera thing figured. I think I'll get it on a Lazy Susan, and I can turn it to that'll work. Yeah. So then you guys can see everybody else talking too. But this one, I thought this was interesting. This actually comes from the Facebook group Friends of Bill and Bob. It says, if your sponsor goes back out and relapses, can he still sponsor you? And I'm not going to read all the comments that followed that, but I'll just give you my input here in a minute. But what do you think, Marv? If your sponsor goes out, can he still sponsor you?
Let me think about that a minute.
Okay. Denver, what do you think?
Jeez. Do you still want him to sponsor you? Sponsor's one of them words that catch me off guard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you having a healthy fellowship with this person?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't really know how to answer that either. By the book, you know, is there
It's
a by
kind
the
of a loaded
book
question. Yeah, is there a by the
so-
book law?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. What's the official word on that? For
Right.
me,
Right.
I wouldn't have a problem continuing that fellowship with the person, especially if I've had a trust and I've had relapses, and it still hasn't changed my position on wanting to be sober.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
continue on with the fellowship, in my opinion.
Which is a little different than the accountability and the step work
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I suppose the way they
but
worded it.
I wouldn't kick him to the curb as
No.
my brother, and
Yeah, I suppose the
I'm not going out to coffee with you no more because you had a beer.
The sponsor word has qualified a different realm
Sure.
on being judged.
Okay,
on
so
whether
I'll chime in on that in a minute. Dave, what do you think?
So I mean, you hit on something about, you know, we had a beer.
yeah.
Well, that's not a relapse as far as I'm concerned. You know, there's a slip and there's a relapse. Did he have a slip or a relapse? Because I've heard people call
That's
call-
a bag of worms we could talk about on the
right.
show. Yeah.
I've heard people call slips a relapse, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
there's a big difference to me. But you know, I guess the short answer is no. I wouldn't have as a sponsor.
right.
But you know, like you guys said, I'm not gonna kick him to the curb. Depending on where I'm at in my program, maybe I would help that person get back on track, right? Because you know, at some point, your sponsor is, you know, becomes, you know, a friend at some point. And
I would hope.
how would you treat a sick friend, right? Isn't that what the book says?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's
You
kind
want to
of-
be helpful to them.
right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my perspective on that.
So, and I don't want to spend too much time with this because that's a whole nother topic. My personal opinion is a relapse is when you go back to anything that you've been trying to recover from. I don't care if it's 1 or 1,000. Is it? But again, we could be talking semantics. But the deal of it here is, if somebody has gone years without a drink or without using narcotics, and they're a sponsor, and they've been doing what a sponsor is outlined to do. They're helping you stay accountable. They're actually helping you and teaching you how to apply and implement the 12-step process out of the literature. They're doing that, and using or drinking befalls them. That tells me that there's something going on with them. They may need to take a break and work on their own stuff, which means I should be gracious enough to say, you know what, I'm going to pull back, and I don't want my issues, because, man, being a sponsor is a heavy responsibility. It's not just a phone number. And I don't want to be a hindrance to my sponsor. You know, I want to pull back and allow him to heal. You know, people, and we fall short of this even in ministry, but people in ministry fall all the time. And within a month, they're put right back into leadership again. And it's not healthy for them.
Yeah, we don't want to cause our brother to stumble.
You don't want to cause your brother to stumble. So I'm with you, Dave. I say, if my sponsor has a relapse or even a slip, according to what you're saying, I'd be going, how can I be helpful to you? And if that means I get a temporary sponsor for a while until you figure out what's going on, maybe that's the best gift I can give to you.
Yeah, and there's another level, I guess, you know, from where I come from. It's, you know, you pretty much know you know, it's not just your sponsor, but you know your sponsor and your sponsor. And so if some
Sure,
stuff like that
grant sponsors and
happens,
stuff, yeah.
then we kind of all rally around each other, and everyone kind of picks up the slack, so to speak,
Right.
and helps each other out. That's where I've come from.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't, you know, always happen that way. You know, it doesn't. You're not able to.
Right.
You don't have that level of support.
Sure. Sure. Well, this has been interesting. I'm sure we'll get some emails.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Marv,
What?
were you going to
Yeah,
chime
you
in?
said,
on that?
Oh, did I?
Let's come
Yeah,
back
yeah.
to
He
me.
took a little
Well,
time out.
that's
I
right.
love his feedback, so I need to hear it.
Oh,
What do you think,
well,
Marv?
yeah. You know what? Let's say you've had a sponsor for same guy or gal for 3 or 4 years.
Sure.
They go out and they come back in. You know what? They haven't lost 3 or 4 years of their
No, they
wisdom.
have not.
Amen.
They still got it.
Yeah.
It's some particular thing because we're alcoholics. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We go back out and drink. Well, I say that tongue in cheek, but that's what happens.
It does happen.
And they don't lose what they had as far as wisdom and knowledge and insight and stuff like that. So
You bet.
I think a lot of it has to do with what's in the eye of the beholder, what the circumstance was, what happened, and to make the decision.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
to say
Good
it
point.
beforehand, you know,
Sure.
not knowing would be half truth, innuendo, and supposition. So anyway,
Well, and I
Just-
like, there's that controversy. Is relapse part of recovery? And my sponsor used to say, and I always liked his answer to that, relapse is never part of recovery until it happens. And nothing is ever wasted if it can be applied as a teaching tool. And when it happens, it can become part of your recovery. Does it have to be? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But it does happen. How are we going to approach the person, whether they're a sponsor or a sponsee or just a fellow member? Right? Are we going to approach them when this happens? Remember, we're dealing with a mental illness. We're dealing with an illness. I know a lot of people don't like to call it that, but we are. And, what's our compassion level? And so we have to make some careful decisions when it comes to these kind of things. But to beat somebody up or to say, you're fired, well, that's really helpful. But
actually, I've been fired for less.
I have been fired for that too. I was fired by a guy that was a good friend for a number of years, asked me to be his sponsor. I never once or even had the opportunity yet to actually talk about Jesus, but because I wore a shirt that had Jesus on it, or it had a fish, right? He decided I was a Jesus freak and didn't want me to be a sponsor anymore. So look at our programs are filled with a variety of folks, right?
Right.
and so again, God's in charge. Thank God he is, and we're not. There you go. All right. So listen, we're gonna do this again next week. We've got several more questions, and I just want to thank everybody for sending them in. Any closing thoughts, you guys?
Yeah, the undersea gardens are going out.
The Undersea Gardens in Newport?
Yeah, they're closing this week.
That little thing that takes you two inches.
You guys didn't hear that, huh?
You walk into it, takes you 2 inches down. You look at
Yeah.
some seaweed.
Yeah. Some algae.
Everybody's ready-
Yeah, they're closing it here. 3rd through the 8th, you can go over for free and check out the algae growth.
Wow. That's a trip.
Wow.
That's my closing thought.
Okay, I'm gonna fiddle with the
Go to
camera here.
meetings, read the
Anybody
big
else?
book, call your sponsor, and don't drink.
Blah 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 blah. All right, our closing song is by Michael and the Messengers. Interestingly enough, it's entitled "By the Book." Love the harmonica in this.
So
Oh, no, wait a
sit
minute.
right back and listen to the
Wow,
questions
Monty.
you sent in.
Wait a minute.
Take 12 radio, ask it baskets ready to begin. So don't get offended if we get all the answers wrong. Just like the silly words I'm singing in this stupid song. Whee!
That was supposed to be played before the topic. But hey, what a great way
Save
to
it for next week.
Wow.
Yeah.
We know where all the coffee went.
Wow.
Keep coming back.
Yeah.
Works if you work it.
Oh my
Sucks if
goodness.
you
All
don't.
right, here is By the Book by Michael and the Messengers. Oh my goodness sakes.
Put down the bottle, picked up the phone. The man on the line said, "You're not alone. We got people just like you. Want what we got, do what we do." Said, "Son, if you're a drunk, a liar, cheating, a crook, try doing it by the book." Made some meetings, didn't walk out. Listened up, shut my mouth. They had all hit bottom, end of the line. They all stayed dry one day at a time. They said, "Keep coming back," and that was all it took. Started doing it by the book. I do the steps in order. 1, 2, 3. Try to help somebody like they help me. Now I stay sober and life goes right. Say please in the morning and thanks at night. Another day not drinking, you let me off the hook. Doing it by the book. By the book. By the book. By the book. By the book.
Mr. Michael Purrington and the Messengers. Listen, if you've got a question for us here at Take 12 Recovery Radio about recovery, about spiritual growth in your recovery, or any topic as far as the 12 steps go, 12-step fellowships, we will do our best to answer them. Send them in to this email address. Take 12 Radio, that's TAKE, the number 12, radio at Comcast.net. All right, until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man along with the Take 12 Recovery Radio family, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
Good guys, bad boys, we're all the same. Saved by grace is the name of the game. Turn around, hit the ground, time to lay a burden down.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Cause she's a super cat, she's super kitty, meow.
Here, kitty, 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 kitty.